So today we will be discussing about various market models which are used in the power system. So market participants, as we have discussed, can avoid various additional charges by forming a pool and entering into financial contract. A pool model with location market defined for every node is considered as an ideal market model, as the nodal price perfectly reflects all the cost of supplying electricity at given node and manages congestions at the same time. So when we are talking about pool model, we are considering it as a best model. It will combine all costs for generation, transmission, and distribution, and it will be deciding on the basis of cost at node, and we are manage congestions at the same time. So two main technical features determine the complexity of the model: the electricity, which cannot be stored, and its transportation, that means transmission, require a physical link. So proper market model in most cases must deal with imperfectly competitive markets, which are more complex to represent. Some market models which are used are: first is vertical market model, then second is wholesale market model or wholesale competition model, and third model is retail competition model. So generally these are the three types of models which we are using in the power system. So generally first market model is a monopoly model, which we have discussed in detail in the starting, in which we have, so first is your vertical market model, which is also known as monopoly model. We have generation, then transmission, and then distribution, and we have customers. In this, power is flowing from generation to transmission network, then transmission network to distribution network, and from distribution network to customers. But the money will flow only from customer to the distribution network. So this is the vertical market model, simple vertical market model. The electric power industry has over the years been dominated by a large utility that had an overall authority over all the activities in generation, transmission, and distribution. So these all will be handled by one company, one authority, which will be controlling all the activities in the power system like generation, transmission, and distribution within its domain of operation. Such utilities have often been referred to as vertical integrated utilities. These utilities served as the only electricity provider in a region and were obliged to provide electricity to everyone in the region. The typical structure of a vertical integrated electrical utility is we have money will flow only in unidirectional, that is from the customer to the electric company. And similarly, the information flow exists only between the generation, transmission, and distribution network. The vertical integrated utility was often difficult to segregate the cost involved in generation, transmission, and distribution. So these utility often charge their customer an average tariff rate depending on their total cost for the duration. So this we have discussed in detail. Already this vertical integrated model we have discussed in details. Some of the demerits which are associated with vertical market model is generally one firm which is a franchisee. Regulators approve what utility will build. This may or may not be lowest cost investment and may or may not be technically innovative. Traditional utility regulations accommodates the use of more depth but limits innovation. Risk and return expectations will be relatively lower. This will affect what type of entities hold ownership stake. So this we have discussed in detail. So we have monopoly model. So we have traditional monopoly model, and then now we have somewhat modified monopoly model. So that is, so in this we are not having one utility, we are having so in this by red we are showing the energy flow within company, and by blue, we are showing energy sale. So this is a modified monopoly model in which we have purchasing agencies this is the first step towards the introduction of competition in the electricity supply industry. The integrated utility no longer owns all the generation, transmission, and distribution network. So in previously, all the three entities of power system are controlled by a single agency. But in modified monopoly model, the single company does not hold all the components and then no longer owns all the generating stations, and we have independent power producers, IPP, that is independent power producers are connected to the network and sell their output to the utility that act as a purchasing agency. So in this, we have the company's generation, and then we have independent power producers which will be giving or selling the power to the wholesale purchase agency. The wholesale purchase agency will purchase the power generated by the independent power providers, and then it will be a single utility that will be distributing the power to the consumers. So in this, we have reduced the monopoly of the company, but the company have the monopoly in the distribution network of the system. So this is the simple modified purchasing model of monopoly system. So purchasing agency will purchase the power, and the company which is purchasing the power does not own all the generators in the system, and they will purchase energy from the independent power producers. The distribution and retail activities are now also it can be deregulated. So this is further modified in which we have wholesale purchasing agency, and then we have independent power producers, and then a single agency will purchase all the power which are generated by the different generating stations, and then this company will be distributing the power to various discoms. And then these discos will send power to the consumers. So this is further modified model of a wholesale market, but discom will purchase the power or energy consumed by their customers for a single wholesale purchasing agency. The rates set by the purchasing agency will be regulated because it has a monopoly power over the discoms and monopoly power towards the IPP. So in these models, we have one wholesale purchasing agency which will be purchasing the power, and then it will be distributing directly, or it will be distributing with the help of discoms. But all these three models, which are simple vertical integrated, modified monopoly, and deregulated monopoly, all these three does not have competitive environment, because there is a monopoly that power can be purchased and sell by a single independent utility. These model therefore does not discover a cost reflective price in the same way that a free market does. However, it has the advantage of introducing some competition between generators without the expense of setting up a competitive market, which is a complex model. So these are having some advantage, because without disturbing the existing system and without disturbing the current system, we have just introduced the competitive environment within the system by introducing independent power producers and various discom companies. So there is a competition between these IPPs, and there is a discom competition for power reliability and cost effectiveness. So this system is introduced because a power system cannot be suddenly changed to a new model. So for new models, we have to reconstruct all the system. But in these models, we have introduced some kind of competitions without affecting the system much. So these are the vertical integrated utilities which we are using for the system. So now the second model which we are discussing will be a wholesale competition model. The wholesale competition model is a one step closer towards the complete competition. There is an organized market in which the generators can sell their energy at competitive rates. So we have organized market where generators can sell their energy Now the market can be organized either by a separate entity or may be run by a system operator itself. The end user does not have many choices. The end user is still affected to the discoms or retailer working in that geographical area of operations. So still affiliation is still affiliated to discoms and retailers in the area. So this is also an advanced version of wholesale competition market. In this, we have various generating companies which will be selling their generation in a wholesale competition market. The large consumers or bulk consumers are privileged to choose their energy providers. However, the small consumers does not have any choice to purchase the power. The choice of suppliers to discoms along with competitions in the generation. Implementation of these models require open access to the transmission network. Also, a wholesale spot market needed to be developed. A discom can purchase energy from their customers either from a wholesale market or through long-term contract with the generators. So in this competitive environment, we have a wholesale market where various gencos will sell their energy. And then we have a open access transmission network. Open access transmission network means all the companies, all the transmission network is available to all the companies which are participating in the wholesale market. This have an option that the discoms or retailers can directly purchase the energy from the gencos by a long duration tenders, and then they can supply power to the consumers. And here we have an option that from this wholesale market, the big consumers can directly purchase the power. And the third option is we have discoms which will be distributing power to the consumers. So this is the basic model of wholesale competition model. The consumers within a service area still have no choice of suppliers. They will be served by a discom in their area. With this model, the discoms are under universal service obligations as they have monopolies over the customers. They own and operate the distribution network. The transmission network is owned and maintained either by government or private transmission agencies. System operators manage the centrally accomplished task of operation and control of the power system. In this model, no central organization is responsible for the provision of electrical energy supply. Instead, a discom purchases the electric energy consumed by their consumers directly from the generating companies. These transactions take place in a wholesale electricity market. The largest consumers are often allowed to purchase electric power directly from the wholesale market. The wholesale market can take the form of pool or a bilateral transactions. At the wholesale level, the only function that remains centralized are the operation of the spot market and the operation of the transmission network. At the retail level, the system remains centralized because each DISCOM not only operates the distribution network in that area, but also purchase electrical energy on behalf of the consumers located in its service territory. This model creates considerably more competition for the generating companies because the wholesale price is determined by the interplay of the supply and demand. On the other hand, the retail price of electrical energy must remain regulated because small consumers cannot choose a competitive supplier if they feel that the price is too high. This level, the distributed companies exposed to sudden large increase in the wholesale price of energy. So this is a wholesale competition models, and this model have providing a competitive environment for the generators because the wholesale price is determined by the interaction between supply and demand. The retail price of electricity remain regulated because the small consumers still do not have a choice of their suppliers. So merits of wholesale is choice of seller provided for DISCOMs and bulk consumers. Buyers and sellers can make forward contract or buy from a wholesale market. So in this, the buyer or seller have an alternate that they can directly purchase power from the generating companies, or they can purchase the power through wholesale market. And price is decided by interaction between demand and supply. So a competitive price has been provided to the consumers. Demerits are the end consumer still does not have a choice. It buys power from the affiliated DISCOMs. Rates for end consumers are regulated rather than competitive. Then we have DISCOMs face competition at wholesale level while their returns are regulated. Because DISCOMs are purchasing power from the wholesale market, so they are facing competition at that level, but the rate at which they are supplying the power to the consumers are regulated by the regulating agencies. Structural and institutional changes required at wholesale level. So because at wholesale level there is not much autonomy to the system, so structural and institutional changes are required at the wholesale level. So this is the wholesale competitive environment. And then for third, which we are using, it is a retail competitive market. In this system, with the power to the generating companies, now we have a power to the consumers also. So in this, we have a wholesale market, and then we have a distribution network and retail market. So we have various Zencos, which is selling their power in the wholesale market. And then we have retailers or discoms which are purchasing power from the and we have big customers which can purchase power from wholesale market. But instead of directly supplying power to the consumers, now we have a distributed and retail market in which the customer has choice So in this model, all the customer have access to competitive generations either directly or through their choice of retailers. This would be competitive separation for both the generations and retail from the transmission and distribution level. Both the transmission and distribution buyers provide open access in this model. There would also be free entry for retailers. In this model, retailing is a function that does not require the ownership of distribution buyers. All through the owner of distribution buyers can also compete a retailer. This model is a multi-buyer, multi-seller model. This is a multi-buyer, multi-seller model, and the power pool in this model act like a auctioneer. It behaves like a single transporter moving power to facilitate bilateral trading, and this is achieved through an integrated network of wires. In this pooling arrangement, there is a provision for bidding into a spot market to facilitate merits order dispatch. The pool matches the supply and demand and determine the spot price for each hour of the day. It collects money from purchasers and distribute it to the producers. The advantage of this model over monopoly utility is that the competition is introduced in the wholesale and retail area of the system. This model is supposed to be truly deregulated power market model. The retail price is no longer regulated because small consumer can change their retailer for better price options. This model is economically effective as the price is set by the interaction of demand and supply. In wholesale competition market with relatively few customers, all of them regulated discounts, a spot market can be preferred but not essential. In the retail competitive model, spot markets become essential since contractual arrangements between customer and producers are carried out over a network owned by the third party. In retail competition models, metering becomes a major problem. If the number of consumers are increasing and the meeting capabilities of all the consumers is not sufficient, it may create logistic problems and provoke dispute between the companies. So the merit which are associated with retail model are: first is 100% deregulated model. Consumer has choice of buying power. The price is decided by the interaction of supply and demand. There is no regulation in energy pricing. So the demerits associated with these are: need constitutional and structural changes at both ends, extremely complex system, due to large number of participants, and required additional infrastructure. So this is the ultimate form of competitive electricity market in which all the consumers can choose their suppliers. Because of the transaction cost, only the largest consumer choice to purchase energy directly on the wholesale markets. Most small and medium consumers purchase it from the retailers, who is turned buy it in the wholesale market. In this model, the wires activities of the distribution companies are normally separated from their retail activities because there is no longer have a local monopoly for the supply of electricity in an area. In this model, the only remaining monopoly functions are provisional and operation of the transmission and distribution networks. Once sufficiently competitive market have been established, the retail price no longer have to be regulated because small consumers can change their retailers when they are offered a better price. From an economical perspective, this model is the most satisfactory because energy prices are set through market interactions. Implementation of this model require considerable amount of metering, communication, and data processing. The cost of transmission and distribution network is still charged at all their users. This is done on a regulatory basis because these networks remain monopolies. So these are the various models which are used by the electric power system for deciding the price at which the supply will be provided to the consumers. So first is vertical integrated model, in which the customer does not have any choice. Then second, we have a wholesale competitive model, in which the big consumers and retailers have choice to purchase power from the various generating sources. And in the third, retail competitive market, all the generating companies, distribution companies, and consumers have choice for selecting their service providers. So this is the models which we are using in the electrical power system network for a power system cost decision and cost identification. So these are the three models which we are using for the power system. So if you have any confusion or any question related to these three terms, you can ask.